Welcome to the Two Grumpy Bastards podcast, where feelings aren't felt and snowflakes melt. Buckle up, it's gonna be a bumpy ride.
They painted over ants.
This song it had a. I know we're gonna be at loggerheads over this. It had a weird melody. It was a little bit uneven to me.
I heard Dylan Mulvaney didn't like Sledgehammer either, so maybe that's Dylan Mulvaney. Yeah, I heard he didn't like Sledgehammer either. All right, let's get to it.
He still has a sledgehammer, I guess. So
let's get on with it. Hey, welcome to the Two Grumpy Bastards podcast. Koop was way off on that. Yeah, that was from his second album, not from So. That was my bad. Yeah, I remember the video now. Coming out on empty. Yeah, no, you're right. Ding, 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 ding. Anyway, the lyrics are apropos to about everybody I think about, and that's in the news. Yeah, they've gone too far. Everything's gone too far in this country, Russ. And I'm gonna kick off our 57th episode. Is that right? Are we on 56, 57, something like that?
I count on you to keep track of that.
Yeah, we're on something like that. I don't do the art until we are about to publish anyway. So I'm going to commemorate, because today, Russ, do you know what today is?
Today is the summer solstice.
Yes, it is. It is the summer solstice that we are recording this on, ladies and gentlemen, the longest day of the year here in the North American continent, north of the equator, all over the place. And let me just tell you, I want to commemorate the summer solstice with the following video. So I got this specifically for you, Russ, because I know you would enjoy this. You're going to see some editing.
How dare you! How dare you!
That never gets old. So for those of you on the podcast side, that was an homage to Greta Thunberg. 5 years ago today, she predicted that the Earth would no longer exist if we didn't stop using fossil fuels today. So her prediction 5 years ago was today, we were no longer going to exist, based on a tweet that she sent out. Because, you always put 15-year-old I said it. I'm saying that now.
Autistic children? Yeah.
Yeah, the spoiled little children who are just shills for their leftist Northern European parents who are into the Great Reset, and shills for good old Klaus out there. You always put some credence into those people because children are our future. Feed them well or whatever, and let them lead the way. Is the modern version of that. Fucking stupid. The fact that she became an international celebrity. I just want, sometimes Schadenfreude is a good thing. And I'm feeling that today, going, yeah, we're still here. Wow, weird.
Yeah, I actually posted this on my Facebook page about a week or so ago, talking about how we had less than a week until Greta Thunberg said we were going to be past the tipping point. Some folks got on and were like, hey, no, it says that we had 5 years to stop using fossil fuels, not that the world would end. I was like, well, then sounds like we're not going to make it. So since we're past the tipping point at 5 years, let's party like it's 1999.
Let's do it.
Same folks who are like, we need to stop all this global warming are the same folks who recoil when I say, so you're ready to go to war with India and China because they're like the two biggest emitters on the planet? Or, is it all just talk?
It's all just talk. It's all just a secular religion. It's all just a thing for people who have absolutely no control and power over their own emotions and lives to try to take control and power over other people, because the inside they might, back in the day, 30, 40 years ago, they might have been the meek and mild introverts in the world. Now they're just passive bullies because they're horrible people. And they were horrible people 30, 40 years ago, but they were too scared to say something because it would have been perfectly fine for somebody like me to punch him in the fucking face. It's not okay to do that anymore. And it was okay for people to shame people who said stupid shit in the past. It's not okay for people to do that anymore. So now they get their passive aggressive or now just outright aggressiveness out by taking a cause and trying to shove it down the throat of decent people who are just trying to do things in life that are positive and productive. So that's the way. Like I said, I've said it a million times, Russ, they all have daddy issues, whether that daddy is the government, is conservatives, is religious people, or whatever. They all have daddy issues.
Yeah. See, the thing with folks like Greta is that there's almost an inborn need in so many of them to face the apocalypse. They want to believe that they are facing the worst possible thing ever. It reminds me of the folks who find racism and everything because they're ashamed that they missed the civil rights movement. Not to say that there isn't racism in certain places, but they're not, folks today are not marching down the street facing fire hoses and dogs. And along those same veins, the environmental movement, they're upset that they can't actually live out the fantasies in the Thanos world of the MCU. They want to face it so they can feel validated, so they feel they have some meaning.
Yes, and that's a big part of the problem with culture and society in general these days. Is there's very few things that growing up, and I talk about it all the time with people, and younger people don't realize, like the pervasive nature of civic groups. When I was a kid, my family, I mean, we were poor white folk and all that, but we belonged. My dad and mom belonged to every organization you could belong to: Lions Club, Elks, Eagles, church things, whatever. My dad was very active in building things because he was a fabricator. His floats won the sweepstakes award in the Daffodil Festival, which is a big deal up here in the Pacific Northwest, a couple of years when we lived out in Orting, Washington. We were always doing something. You were always doing something. You were going to picnics. You were going to potlucks. 4th of July, we had these huge celebrations at the old soldiers' home where we would do the old-fashioned 3-legged races and the picnic and the softball games, and then they'd have fireworks over the lake at night. And it was, you'd go there. Kids would always go someplace and be taught by the old Korea War vets were around there teaching you things and running movies and stuff. And, every week was a Lions Club potluck. Nobody does that anymore. There is no idea of tribe. Wonderful book by Younger, by the way. There is no idea of the tribe anymore. It's just me. It's just what, trying to be a digital creator or whatever else now. And people can't live that way without being completely miserable. So instead of turning to something positive, everybody, religion, well, I'll tell you about my view about what religion really is someday. It's not what people say it is. We become secular and gone away from that and become individualistic, but that's not the way people are supposed to be. And so instead of glamming on something good, they glam on these other things that they've convinced themselves are good. Okay, being pro-environmental is a good thing. That's a very good thing. But when it becomes your religion and it clouds judgment, nothing's good. And people say that about the church all the time. Well, it clouds judgment and reason. Sometimes, sure. Sometimes religion can do that. But so does your religion, oh, by the way. Whether it's the environment or atheism or Black Lives Matter or what have you.
Yeah, I take small issue with one thing you said when you said we've lost the tribe. I don't think these people have lost the tribe. I think they've joined an ideological tribe. They're not out there doing things for the tribe. They're all online and they're all trying to shame other people based on the ideas of the tribe. Maybe tribe is the wrong word. Maybe more like cult. Because when you go against the doctrine of the cult, you get shamed, you get shunned, and then the cult comes after you to try to destroy you.
Yep. Yeah, I know we beat up on this, but it's such a huge part of what's wrong with the world now. Once again, I will recommend the book Bowling Alone. It's a very good book by a sociologist whose name is escaping me right now. That talks very much about this, that the downfall of America was when civic organizations and all these ideas about groups that had a positive group intent started getting phased out. Even bowling leagues. Are you looking it up right now?
Robert Putnam.
Thank you, Robert Putnam. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. Putnam. That's pretty easy. When somebody writes a book and his last name's Putnam, you would think that would be a pretty easy association. But yes, excellent book. All right, let's get into it. We got video rewind. Russ, I got a few videos to show you other than that homage to Greta Thunberg. I hope you folks go over to the YouTube.
By the way, for those who say we can't make fun of her, she's a grown-up now. She's over the age of 18. I can make fun of that whore however I want to.
Yeah. I kind of corrected my speech because I was talking about her in past tense, so I didn't want to say that about a 14-year-old girl.
No, but she's now what, 20, I think.
Right. You know, it's kind of that way when there's a actress or a singer that is young and then they get of legal age, and you go, at what age can I actually look at a photo of them and think they're hot? Because I don't want to do that. You know, like you did, like when Miley Cyrus had her TV show on whatever channel that was, you didn't want to look at those photos and think she was hot. It's fine to do that now.
Well,
but, you know, if you do that in retrospect, you're a pedo. I'm sorry.
I still remember back when I was a boy and Britney Spears was brand new. And she was first out when she was like 16 or 17. And then the day she turned 18, it was like, can't look. Oh, look, who's that? I've never seen her before with the nice firm breasts.
I remember telling somebody when she did turn 18 and, you know, the leather pants and all the other stuff, I said, she's actually a computer graphic. There's no way a woman actually looks like that. She doesn't exist. Anyway, and that was before deep fakes existed, so I was a little ahead of my time. Anyway, let's get into another video here. You know that I have a crush on a couple of gentlemen that are in the Congress and in the Senate. So I'm going to play a couple of videos. You know that the FBI is suspect these days. I know that's shocker.
A little bit, just a little bit.
Their integrity might be a little bit in question. So I want to show a couple of videos right here during our rewind session on a couple of the guys that make me smile when I watch them on video. Here we go.
Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Abadi, let me just stay with you. You just started to answer Senator Blackburn's question that not releasing the 1023 or talking about it as a matter of life and death, question of life and death, you said. Explain.
It is potentially a question of life and death
For whom?
With regard to the source of the information.
So, okay, so now we've confirmed that the document exists. That's progress because the FBI director initially denied that it exists. Why did he do that?
We have already and previously acknowledged the existence of the documents.
Yeah, after you first denied it. Now, when a member of this committee read it, right, the FBI director, let's just get the record straight. The FBI director initially said it doesn't exist. Then Senator Grassley said, I've read it. Then he said, oh, okay, well, gotcha. I guess it does exist. Now you're going back and forth with members of this committee, what's in it. Why don't you just release it? Is it classified?
The document is not classified.
Okay. Will you commit to releasing it?
Senator, we'll take that back and we will work with you in this committee.
How about just a yes or no? Will you commit to releasing this unclassified document that alleges that the President of the United States, has taken $5 million or more in bribes from a foreign nation?
The document has already been released pursuant to a subpoena to the House Oversight Committee.
Has it been released to this committee?
We'll work with this committee within the parameters that are established to meet
Will you
the
release the
request.
document to the public? It's unclassified. Don't you think the American people have a right to see it?
Senator, the document, as you know, contains sensitive information that has bearing on the life of the source of the information, potentially.
You can redact the source's name. We do this all the time.
I love Josh Hawley. That's him being mild, by the way. That's him being kind of respectful to the fact that he's talking to the deputy director of the FBI. I actually go down rabbit holes on Josh Hawley videos on YouTube.
Wow, there's a picture I didn't need.
Well, the guy, he's illustrating. It's big right now, Russ. This dishonesty we talked about this a little bit in our last video. We can't trust the federal law enforcement in any regard whatsoever. It is the FBI, like I said last time, used to be like this. When I was growing up, it was like this mystique, you know, the G-man, the unruffable, unflappable FBI agent who stood for everything great about America. This is what we've resorted to now. The FBI director, the deputy director there saying it would actually risk the life of this is a whistleblower who's been trying to get front and center. Oh, by the way, getting this stuff known. So that's all bullshit. This is just more protecting the current administration for some reason. And excuse me, Senator Hawley, I have fantasies about him becoming the vice presidential candidate, or at least if not in this cycle, in the next one, because I just to see him and then Ted Cruz as the Attorney General of the United States would be like, I would just cease to exist. If you put DeSantis, Hawley, and Cruz in the administration, I would cease to exist. Nothing would be more happy to me than that. Anyway, go ahead.
Sorry, I had to yell at my dog for half a second. The first of all, I love Josh Hawley. He's very thorough, very detailed. He's very intelligent. However, if our boy DeSantis gets the nomination either in 24 or 28, I don't think Hawley would be the VP, only because they're too much alike.
Yeah, they are.
So
You're right.
I mean, almost down to their mannerisms. Now, Hawley's right. The trust in federal law enforcement is gone, and I know exactly why it is. It's because they are shills for their benefactor, which is the president of the United States. They know the Republicans aren't going to do anything, and there are so many careerists in the FBI who know where their bread is buttered that they're going to keep doing this kind of stuff. Not all of them. There's a lot of good agents out there at lower levels, but at the senior leadership levels and just maybe a notch below that, they know where their bread's buttered. And they're gonna keep doing it. They're like the Praetorian Guard for the Biden administration. Let's not forget. Look, this bribery stuff, I don't know. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. It should at least be investigated. And lest we forget that bribery is one of the few things in the Constitution specifically mentioned as ground for impeachment and removal.
Right.
It's treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors.
Right.
So that's a pretty big deal. I mean, it would be interesting to find out for sure just how a man who spent his entire life in public office getting a government salary is now a multimillionaire many times over. As you know,
Insane.
I'm sure he's not selling his influence around the world or anything. His crackhead son has been out there picking up bags of cash from foreign governments for peddling his daddy's name and his daddy's influence. And the FBI has been covering for it. And it was pretty amusing. The FBI director saying that, this document didn't exist. And then they're like, we've read it. They're like, oh, yeah, I guess it kind of does. I mean, flat out lying, not just to the American public. I understand. I don't mean to say I understand lying, but I understand the need for some obfuscation. If you're if you're trying to work certain angles under, through the criminal justice system, you don't want to alert criminals, all that kind of stuff. I get some of that. But when you're talking to the elected representation of the nation, the folks who are actually the ones that fund your job and help pay your salary through the allocation of the Treasury, you have a moral and more importantly, a legal obligation to be upfront with them. But trust in those kinds of agencies went away long ago. I mean, I believe I don't remember if it was Clapper or Brennan, but flat out lied to the American public about the NSA was not, or the CIA was not tracking and listening in on Americans' phone calls, which is flat out untrue. And it came out later that it was untrue. They never faced any consequences. They should have faced contempt of Congress and gone to jail, but they didn't. So Hawley gets on these folks, and what I think the most galling thing, that little pissant deputy director, is in his mannerisms. You can tell what he thinks is, I'm smarter than you, I'm better than you, therefore you are not entitled to have what I do. That's what his mannerisms say.
Well, with that, let me show you another person I consider a superstar in American politics talking to the same guy, and him also thinking, I think he comes across a little intimidated here because he is talking to somebody that's an intellectual giant who is one of the sharpest legal minds that has ever sat in those halls. So let me play that video for you here right quick. My boy, the Cruz missile.
Gentlemen, every day when I'm home in Texas, I hear from Texans who are deeply dismayed about the growing politicization and weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI. If you are not, every one of you should be deeply concerned about the damage being done to the integrity of the institutions in which you operate. My office hears regularly from FBI agents and from assistant U.S. attorneys who are likewise concerned about the politicization and weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI, and this is profoundly damaging to the rule of law in our nation. Last month, a whistleblower brought to light the existence in the FBI of a report, an FD 1023, in which the informant alleges that President Biden and his family members engaged in a $5 million bribery scheme during his time as vice president. Deputy Director Abate, is it true that the FBI has a report making those allegations?
I'm not going to comment on that, Senator.
And why is that?
I'm just not going to comment on information we received, investigations, or
Do you owe an
ongoing matters.
obligation to the American people to be candid about evidence of corruption by the President of the United States?
This is an area that I'm not going to get into with you, Senator.
Well, I understand you don't want to, and that's why people are mad at the FBI, because you're stonewalling and covering up serious allegations of evidence of corruption from the president. Yesterday, Senator Chuck Grassley stood on the Senate floor and alleged that there are 17 recordings of this informant from Burisma, Ukrainian natural gas company. 15 of them are recordings, voice recordings of him talking to Hunter Biden. 2 of them are voice recordings of him talking to Joe Biden. Deputy Director Abate, does the FBI have 17 voice recordings laying out evidence of a bribery scheme?
Senator, I would add also that we've worked with the House Oversight Committee.
Yeah, this is the
provide
Senate. We're the
document
other
that
side
you
of the Capitol. This is the Senate. Do you have those 17 recordings?
I'm not going to comment on any investigative matters, Senator.
See, that's the problem. The FBI, and I've had this conversation with Chris Wray too, this is why you are damaging the institution. The American people have a right to know whether there is serious, credible evidence that the President of the United States took a $5 million bribe. And by the way, if it's false, Chairman Durbin just rolled his eyes. Yes or no?
In each and every investigation that we have, all the work that we do,
I asked you
the
yes or no
expectation
question.
is that every logical avenue of investigation be pursued
I asked you a
to
yes
its
or no
fullest.
question. Are you going to answer it?
Yeah, I'm answering your question.
Was the informant one you had relied on previously in other investigations? Yes or no?
Senator, we run down every piece of information, every
You're not
lead,
answering it then. You're refusing to answer
objectively,
it. So you're refusing to answer the
to
question.
the fullest extent possible.
You're refusing to answer the question.
relentlessly,
Is that
and
correct?
aggressively in all instances.
Senator, your time
It's
is
disgraceful. It's disgraceful, Deputy Director Abate. Disgraceful.
Senator.
I love him. I really do. He was a little harder on him than Josh Hawley was. Josh Hawley usually he spent his ranker more on like far left judges and professors and people, pushing that kind of agenda. But boom, the arrogance, just the absolute arrogance. There was a time, Russ, when lying to Congress was a big fucking deal. I mean, it was lying to the media was a big fucking deal. Reporters being caught lying was absolute termination. You got the White House press secretary, who is the biggest fucking horrible liar on planet Earth.
Terrible.
I do people really, have we gone so far in the direction of narcissism and just sociopathy that these people actually believe their own shit? Or are they just so calloused and agenda driven that they just don't care?
Well, I just think that they honestly believe they're smarter and the rubes that are attacking them are not going to be able to do anything. And maybe they have a point to it, because let's posit for a moment that this bribery scheme is true. Let's say it is true. Nothing's going to happen to Joe Biden, even if the House managed enough squishy members to impeach the president, and they would have to have almost all Republicans vote in favor, because almost no Democrats will. The Democrats control the Senate, and even if the Republicans win every open seat in the next cycle, Democrats will continue to control the Senate. So there is no, they're not going to remove him. He would have to be caught on national television taking a bribe and saying, on audio for all to hear, I'm handing this country over to the Chinese. It would take something like that to where the Senate, the senators, the representatives would see their own political careers go up in smoke if they didn't vote in favor of conviction. So they're not going to do that. I mean, I remember the opening days of the Bill Clinton saga back in the late 90s. I mean, there were Democrats at first that were saying, yeah, if this is true, then we're going to probably have to remove him from office. And that lasted about 5 minutes. And they were like, wait a minute, he's our boy. We're not going to do that. They are acting as a shield for the president. Look, if this is not true, then they owe everybody, including the American public and the president, to exonerate Joe Biden if it's not true, so that he can go, so that we can go forward in politics without this hanging over the head. But it is the obfuscation. If you notice, one of the things that deputy director did there is he answered the question like a politician, because he wouldn't give a direct answer. He was, well, I'm going to dance around it and give a bunch of platitudes and a bunch of cliches, but he answered it like a politician, which is not surprising because up at that level, they essentially are politicians. They're just not elected.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that even in the military side, where you rise to senior field grade, and it becomes ridiculously political in some sense, especially with certain jobs. You can't help that. I will say that, to be fair, you can't help that at a certain level, especially deputy director of the FBI, one of the second guy in the chain of command of the entire federal law enforcement branch. You get that some of it's political, but the fact that they have become politicians, Comey was disgusting. I mean, every time Comey talked, I feel like I wanted to take a shower. He was gross. I mean, he was nothing but a politician. I don't know how he ever, rose to that level, but there's just nobody to admire anymore.
Yeah,
go ahead.
And see, this is, as much as I am not a Donald Trump fan, it's this kind of stuff that gives credibility to Trump. Gives credibility to Trump's assertions about the deep state, about the bureaucratic.
Oh, he's right. Absolutely right about that.
Yeah, it's the bureaucracy that runs the country. And that's what gives him traction, because people are not as stupid as the deputy director thinks we are. We can see this stuff. So just, trying to play it off, that's why people gravitate towards somebody who should have never had a chance in electoral politics if stuff was even slightly more even.
Right.